On May 11th, 2023, the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative and WUKY presented the fourth installment in the series, Say It Loud, A Song for Mama. This event was recorded at the WUKY Studios and featured readings from Tina Bryson, Ellis Bryson, Nita Clarke, and Dr. Abeni El-Amin, along with a musical performance from Anonimuss Rose. Support for Say It Loud comes from the Kentucky Arts Council, Lex Arts, South Arts, the Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, Southland Printing, the University of Kentucky, and the Chethek Family Fund to Advance Black Writers. Say It Loud is a joint production of 91.3 WUKY and the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative.
Good evening, good people. Good evening. How y'all doing? It was 80 degrees today. Kentucky remembers it's May. Let's give Kentucky a hand. I had some doubts there for a minute. Welcome. I am going to introduce you to our fine writers and musicians by reading their bios, and then we are just going to let them have it. All right, our first readers are mother and son. First up is Ellis Bryson. Ellis has always been fascinated with writing and has been in numerous writing programs, from the School for the Creative and Performing Arts to the Governor's School of the Arts. His goal is to positively change the world by opening up discussions and viewpoints many people may not consider, adding a wider, more diverse conversation to the media narrative. This is Ellis's second Say It Loud, and he has also been the winner of the Carnegie Center's Octavia Butler, what is it? I named that. The Octavia Butler Speculative Fiction Contest. All right, it comes to me eventually. So he is a superstar in the making, already a superstar, and we are so thrilled to have him once again. In fact, Tom was adamant that we have Ellis again. And I said, wait a minute, his mama. Don't sleep on his mama. Tina Bryson leads the communications team for the Christian Appalachian Project, the largest human services organization exclusively serving Appalachia. Prior to serving at CAP, Tina coordinated a special project for the University of Kentucky Alumni Association as part of the university's sesquicentennial. Ooh, yeah. That was a word, y'all. So many vowels. The project produced was They Came Before, the legacy of African American pioneers and trailblazers at the University of Kentucky. Tina has a bachelor's degree in journalism from Howard University in Washington, D.C., historically black. Yes. And a master's degree in communications from Marquette University in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She is also the community editorial writer for the Lexington Herald-Leader. She also serves as president of the Public Relations Society of America Thoroughbred chapter here in Lexington and is a member of Zeta Phi Beta. So any Zetas, any other Zetas in the house? Okay, that's enough. Always want to have a Zeta present. Yes. And in the middle, she has not arrived. She is having an Uber experience. Anonimuss Rose will do an intermission. And Anonimuss Rose makes music for the people, period. A neo-soul flower is blooming in the heart of Kentucky. At 29 and ready for the world, Anonimuss Rose brings a 90s vibe with a futuristic twist that appeals to the present. Her story begins planted in the center of the bluegrass state, awaiting her time to bloom. After enough sunlight and water, she sang her first song at the impressionable age of 3 in a single-parent home to the grand audience of her mother, the one unwavering supporter she's ever known. After battling depression, homelessness, and surviving a suicide attempt, Anonimuss found solitude and peace in song. Just as things began to look like her big break was approaching, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and forced cancellation of her debut 11-city tour. Heartbroken, yet still determined, she used the time to rediscover herself and her sound, which led to Lincoln Lounge, her forthcoming album. Shortly after the release of her album, she set off on her first tour, This is Anonymous, November of 2021, to expand her career and presence. Now in 2023, we prepare for her second coming album of the trilogy Lincoln Lounge 2, The Juliet, is set to release this year. In fact, she's having a listening party tomorrow night, which I will attend. After Anonymous plays 2 songs in an intermission, we will have Dr. Abeni El-Amin. Dr. El-Amin is an author and editor who holds doctorates from North Central University, University of the Cumberlands, Colorado Theological Seminary, and Union Institute and University in process 2023. She has over 20 years of experience in management, occupational, and organizational development. Dr. El-Amin is co-founder of Project Ricochet, Incorporated, a thriving youth development organization. She has also served as a Multicultural Family Center executive director for the City of Dubuque and as chair of the Raleigh Human Relations Commission. Dr. Abeni El-Amin currently serves as WUKY's own Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion and Belonging consultant. And finally, we have Nita Clarke joining us tonight. Nita is a 73-year-old writer that hails from the bayous of Louisiana and currently resides in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, where she retired in 2006. She is the mother of 2 children, Michael and Michelle, a grandmother, and a great-grandmother. Nita is a disabled Vietnam-era veteran of the U.S. Navy, where she served as a journalist and in public affairs. With nearly 10 years in radio, Nita worked as an announcer for KSLO-KOGM. Y'all, I'm dyslexic. Why y'all got me looking at all of these strange letters together? Lord have mercy. And okay, here is another. Opelousas, which also looks like a whole bunch of vowels. Opelousas, Louisiana, and for KJAE, KLLA in Leesville, Louisiana. She attended the University of Southwestern Louisiana in Lafayette and is a graduate of the Lexington Theological Seminary in 2013. Nita enjoys reading, writing, volunteering for her church, St. Peter Claver, and spending time with family and friends. She has lots of family here. And one thing I want to say is that not all of us had positive experiences all the time with our moms. So I do want to acknowledge anyone who has had a challenging mother, but let's just see what they got for us, right? Yeah. All right, first up, somebody I know who he got a good mama. Ellis Bryson.
Thank you all for having me today. I hope that this kind of reaches. I'll give a little bit of kind of impromptu before this, just because this is probably going to go long. So I have begun working at a news station over in Hamburg, and I was kind of helping them develop the news as we heard the unfortunate news of the National Bank shooting in Louisville. And so this was kind of written in kind of like a response to that, or just kind of like my feelings upon hearing that. And it kind of, for me, illustrates what the essence of kind of what it is of motherhood and what it means to be a mother. So Cinna's weeping howls carried around the chamber, bouncing off the earthen walls of the hollow alcove and echoing back in on themselves. They threatened to drown out the low humming song of the dirge weavers who stood against the side wall, lined up like obedient servants waiting for a command. They continued on, however, with their haunting elegy, undaunted by the cries of the inconsolable woman. Lyra couldn't look at her. She wasn't strong enough to do so. It wasn't her first kutitsa, but it was the first one for the people that she had a personal connection with. Managing to bring her gaze upwards, she turned in an almost imperceptible motion until her eyes became level with the 3 stone sculptures that flanked her. Simple pedestals made of stacked pebbles, each one decreasing in size the further up they climbed, a single object placed alone at the apex of each. She felt a sudden and intense stab in her chest, as if someone had cut open her breast, reached inside and squeezed her heart. These were the last vestiges of her friends, their Ishara, all that was left of them in this world now. For Kyo, it was a small spherical sphere, bundle woven of reeds, each strand placed in an intentional manner, a testament to the weaver. Kyo had made it on one of their first expeditions many years ago, when they ended up lost on their way back home, a small symbol to bind them together, now undone. For Ryla, it was a thin cylindrical tube with many holes poked along the breadth of its side. It was a delightful sepia tone reminiscent of a sunset painted across a sandy dune. Lyra had watched as Ryla had carved away at the bark they had stolen away in the night to collect, unbeknownst to their parents or the elders. The gentle way Ryla had caressed the wood with her ornate knife until she had completed this wonderful instrument whose doleful sounds had reflected the heart of its carver, now forever silent. For Tara, it was a small stuffed animal, a small pink-furred toy in the shape of a tay cow. Despite her belligerent personality, Tara had always had a soft spot for the soft thing. Lyra knew that many a day it had brought her comfort, on days she had missed her father and mother, on days when the caves flooded the storms outside, on days when the quaking of the world threatened to collapse the very roof over their heads. Now the small creature's coal-colored eyes glinted the flames of the torches, reflecting off the small stones, causing a shimmer as if the eyes' toys were filled with tears. Mementos of the departed, devoid of their masters, the last memories anyone would have on those, lost, just on display for all to see. Lyra's vision began to blur at these thoughts. However, discontent with the emotions starting to seep out from her, she wiped her arm in a vigorous manner across her face. Morning would come later. Right now, she had to be strong. For her friends. She had to do them the justice they deserved, the justice they would never receive.
We are gathered here today to honor the sacrifice laid out by these fine young people who sought the betterment of our community.
The decrepit old man who stood opposite Lyra on the other side of the Ishara belted out to the assembled crowd. His thin, bony form was swallowed in robes the color of moss and sand.
These children perished in providing for our needs, but their sacrifices shall not be in vain, nor forgotten. In their bravery they sent back to us child Lyra, that we may know of their fates and return their essence to Etquecha. Praise Etquecha.
Praise be, the rising chorus echoed across the room, reverberating in the confined space. The elder clasped his hands in front of his chest, bowing his head, which did little to stop his voice projecting.
Now it is with heavy hearts we must say our final kwaheri to these 3 eager and bright young souls. For while these 3 lights were taken away from us, they now rest at Etquecha's side.
With Etquecha came the fresh harmony of voices.
Young Ryla, young Tara, and young Kyo.
A new cacophony of sobs burst forth from Senna at the mention of the name of her only son. Her husband held her close, his embrace tightening as if to stifle his wife's grief. Beside the pair, off to their right, stood Tariq, Tara's older brother and the only living family she had. Tariq's face was stricken and empty, a haunted look carved into his features. His face was a pale color, as if he would be sick at any moment. His eyes were wide, a shell-shocked expression of disbelief present, as if he had just stumbled upon fresh carrion. Beside Tariq stood Bessia, mother of Ryla. Her left hand cradled a young infant swaddled in fleece garments and not even a year old. She balanced and bounced him up and down against her hips in a so far sound attempt to keep the little one from waking to the procession in motion. To Bessia's right hand was affixed the only daughter she had remaining, little Mena, who barely could have been 6.5 true harvests old. The young child's face was blank, clearly not understanding the significance or even the nature of the ceremony taking place. For her own part, Bessia's face was a mask of ashen sorrow. Her expression was downcast, molded into the shape one might make in pity, but the sadness was unmistakable within the etched lines of her weary face and the heavy bags under her eyes. Despite this, though, no tears stained her cheeks or escaped from her eyes. It was known that she had been here before, that she knew this feeling well. Lyra imagined, however, that didn't make it any easier being back. The elder cleared his throat before continuing his mournful memorial.
We honor here today Keo, a pillar of the community and a helper to us all. He is remembered by his loving parents, his mother Cinna, and his father Wax. Please come forth. We honor here today Swift Ryla, who was always light of foot. She was always remembered by her mother Bessia, her young sister Mena, and her infant brother Ido. Please come forth. We honor here today dear Tara. Though stubborn of temperament, she took her duties very seriously and upheld them greater than any. Tara is remembered by her eldest and only brother Tarek, now last of his line. Please come forth.
From their place at the front of the crowd, gathered in a small, rounded room, the families of the deceased moved. Wax guided the sobbing Cinna to the monument for her son. However, with a violent yank, the distraught woman threw herself backwards, away from her son's totem and his ishara. Landing on the ground, she curled herself inwards, fits of suffering racking her body as her cries became muffled in her shawl. Wax turned back from the pitiable sight of his partner, unwilling to force her to confront this reality. He had been stone-faced up until now, but as he stood there before a pile of stones and a woven ball, the last physical proof of his son's existence, Lyra saw the wisp of tears in the burly man's eyes. She had never seen him cry before. It rattled her to her very core, a sight that emblazoned itself into the very flesh of her brain, like so many recent images had. Goodbye, my son, Wax whispered, kissing the pads of his pointer and middle fingers and placing them on the ashara. His peace made, he turned and made his way to where his wife lay, kneeling before her as he whispered sweet, soothing tones only for her. Not once did he ever look back, and for some reason, Lyra felt she knew why. If he had, it would have broken him. Meanwhile, silent as a shadow, Bessie had glided towards the monument to her eldest daughter, her newborn still balanced on one side while her new Otis was towed along behind. For only a moment, the link between mother and daughter was separated as the widowed woman placed her fingers against her mouth before bringing them to her daughter's ishara in the traditional sign of final farewell. With the hoarse voice Lyra knew had been made raw from grief, she rasped, "Peace be with you now, my love. Rest, dearest." As Bessia concluded her Quahari, Tariq swayed forward as if sleepwalking on tilting waves, not present in mind or soul. He stood before his sister's monument, but no words left his mouth. He began to perform the motion for final farewell, but his arm drooped to his side, as if someone had freed the bones from his arm. After a moment he turned, no fight left in him, and moved back to where he had stood before, that haunted look still gripping his features. "Praise be to Edquecha," the old man droned. "Praise be to Edquecha," the chanting echo sounded. "Now then, we shall hear from our returning child Lyra as she honors those lost on their last journey. Grateful to Edquecha are we that this child was brought back to us," the elder concluded. Grateful to Edquecha. Lyra felt her face grow hot. It felt like she was being made a spectacle of, the only survivor. She looked up to see her worried mother's tearful eyes, her gaze then meeting her relieved but tear-stained father's cheeks. Before her eyes traveled to the faces of her usually surly and bratty brothers, their countenances now beaming with the thankfulness that their sister had returned alive. She let out a small sigh before stepping forward. It was time. "Today," she stopped, unsure of herself as emotion welled up inside. Could she find the right words? "Today is yet another tragic day. Today I have several friends who didn't make it back home. It's heartbreaking. My heart aches for my friends, for their families. I know only a portion of what they've lost. Keo was always there for me. He helped me when Tetio died. He gave me the advice I needed to keep pushing forward. Ryla was like a sister to me. We leaned on each other, supported each other. We shared everything. She was an incredible friend. Lyra paused to compose herself before continuing. And Tara, there was no one like her. Sure, she had her prickly side, but once you got to know her, she was noble, steadfast, determined. There was no one else I'd rather have in my corner when things got down to it. Each of these were amazing people, and now they're gone. Irreplaceable, one-of-a-kind people that we'll never see again. I know I should be, and I am grateful to be here right now telling you about each of them, but I'm hurt today. I continue to hurt. I'm going to miss everything about them. The way Keo smiled, the songs Ryla would sing, or the passion Tara displayed at... No! The shrill voice pierced through the air like a serrated blade through skin. It was a horrid, ugly noise that could only originate from within the depths of a well of true despair. It was as if something had snapped in the woman, something having roused her from her sorrow. It was as if the Ashara itself were the last vestiges of her son that once memorialized he would be gone forever. In a frenzy, Senna broke of the grip of her husband and began rushing forward. My baby! Not my baby! Don't take my baby! Leaping upon the pile of stones, cascading them forth in various directions, she clasped the woven bundle as if it were Keo himself. Weeping as open as a newborn, she cradled the bundle as she cried, Not my baby! Not my baby! This proved too much for Lyra. The constructive dam of emotion that Lyra had been careful to build, all the cracks she had tried to seal, to keep them inside since everything had happened, gave out. Grasping her mouth to keep her own cries from mingling with Senna's, Lyra's face began to crunch under the weight of the pressure building inside. Fat, wet, angry tears streaked down her eyes, leaving burning trails of misery behind in the layer of dust that caked her features. A wallowing feeling burst within her mind before traveling down her spine into her legs, momentarily stopping in her chest to bring the painful aching of her heart to a crescendo. As the feeling radiated into the legs, the only thing that she could think was, why? Why would this happen? What kind of loving God would allow this to happen? And how long before it was her turn? No! No! Let go! Senna screamed as the elder stood above her, one dirge weaver in wax attempting to pry her loose from Keo's Ashara, while also attempted to free her from its grasp. Don't take him from me, please! It's all I have left! Not my son! Not my baby! Please! Oh, and Quacha, please! With a heavy tug, the Ashara was emancipated from the screeching woman. The sentiment of her words remained, however, echoing within Lyra's head. Don't take him away. Don't take my son. A hand broke Lyra from the incoherent depression coursing through her soul as gentle fingers danced upon the skin of her back. Looking up through puffy, swollen eyes in her swimming vision, she was just able to make out her own mother, trying her best to give her daughter an encouraging smile. Her own face was choked with emotion, as it was evident she had shared in her daughter's pain. The result was a more crooked, broken expression, as if someone was teaching her how to smile for the first time when all she'd ever done was frown. Despite this, however, it brought a bit of soothing to Lyra, who wiped her eyes, taking heavy sniffs several times to clear her sinuses. Her mother offered her other hand, which Lyra took in her grasp, helping her to her feet, her mother rubbing her back in affectionate, affirming circles to keep her calm, while whispering to her, It will be all right, my child. I'm here. Mother's here. You're safe now. Rubbing her nose one last time with her elbow, Lyra hugged her mother in a deep embrace. It hurt. It hurt so much. She was exhausted. She never wanted to attend another kutsitsa again. But even then, if just for now, if just with her mother, she could make it through this one, she felt. Thank you.
It's powerful. Powerful. When I was his age, I was still hooked on phonics. Any mamas here lost a child? I know you felt every word of that. I lost my son 1.5 years ago. I felt every word of that. Tina, come on up. Tina Bryson, everybody.
Whereas my very talented son is a fiction writer, I like more stories from my heart. So I'm a nonfiction. So I want to share 3 stories with you today. A mother's fear, a mother's fight, and a mother's resistance. This first piece I actually wrote in 2018, and as I was thinking about what to bring forth to read today, I reread this, and I'm like, this seems like I wrote it yesterday. So I wanted to share that one with you, and then I'll share, so American Dream, He Was a Monster, and Resist. American Dream. My son is living his American dream. He is 18, and we just dropped him off at college. But just after graduating from high school, he got a summer job. It was a big deal for him, a rite of passage. He was working at a chicken joint, making just above minimum wage. Not a living wage, mind you, but enough to upgrade his phone. But my son worked the closing shift, and that first night he walked home from work, I got a clenched feeling in my stomach because there is something happening in America, a shifting of the ground underneath our collective feet, an undercurrent of darkness. A Rolling Stones article in July 2018 had a subheadline that read, "Rising racial fear and resentment is slowly creating a new 21st century version of Jim Crow." The article discussed the trend over the summer of the police being called on black people for doing regular things, like mowing your grass, barbecuing in a park, or taking a nap in your own dorm room. Now, don't get it twisted. I was never one to believe the hype that we lived in a post-racial America. But there are too many daily reminders that being black in America still has its perils. Either of my sons could have been Trayvon Martin or Tamir Rice or Jordan Davis. And if you don't know those names, that might be why it's a peril for the males in my family. It is 2018, and I have to keep repeating this to remind myself that I haven't stepped into a time machine. I have to remember that I have not fallen into the twilight zone and gone back to the time when my mother was young and had to sit in the balcony to see a movie or attend the colored school, or she wouldn't be served at the local diner. That wasn't even 70 years ago, but my mom's experiences seem far, far into the past. But today, the struggle I have is one of reconciliation, trying to reconcile the ideals and promises of America with the reality of living in America every day. It is not just the fact that so many of my black brothers and sisters have found themselves victims while we watch the viral videos of their deaths on social media that causes a pit in my stomach. It is that sense that the regular routine things that we take for granted are now being perceived as threatening. You can't take a shortcut through a yard on your way home from work. You can't sit in a coffee shop waiting for a friend. You can't even be in your own garage playing loud music. I'd be lying if I said I was surprised those things could happen. They have happened in this country for a long time with black people, but today seems different. It seems like we as a country are at a tipping point where history will define us by how we choose to respond. I'm reminded of the many times I've heard about mass killings in the last few decades, and I always wondered how neighbors could just up and rise up against their neighbors and rape and maim and murder. For most people, the mere mention of Nazis draws to mind evil in its purest form. But not all Germans were Nazis. A 2012 article in Psychology Today was titled, "Why Bad Guys Think They're the Good Guys." In it, philosopher Hannah Arendt said, the most horrifying things about the Nazis was not that they were deviant, but that they were terrifyingly normal. How did regular people stand by and do nothing? How did regular people justify and explain away the injustice they saw with their very own eyes? Each night, I sit numb as images flow across my TV screen or on my social media feed, and I wonder, how did we get here? But I already know the answer. I imagine that if I could have conversations with my fellow Americans, I would hear, but I'm a good person. I'm just protecting my family. I also imagine the silence of my neighbors, and that silence is deafening. It's a hard thing for people to see evil in themselves. We don't call it that because that's harsh. Some may even say judgmental. But people make choices every day that have real consequences for themselves and for others. When we see injustice and choose not to speak up, We normalize prejudice and cruelty. I'm happy for my son as he starts this new journey. Lexington is a good place to raise a family, but we still had the talk before we said goodbye. At the end of the day, my American dream was just having my baby come home safe at the end of his shift, to have his life valued as much as the next person's, to be able to gut through a yard without suspicion. I still have that dream as a mama that loves her son. History doesn't have to repeat itself. So please, good people, please, speak up. The next piece is called He Was a Monster. He wasn't a monster, at least not to me. He was nice and thoughtful and present. He was the most involved dad I knew. He was at every parent-teacher conference, every science fair, every band concert, every awards program. His wife and I were friends. Our children were friends. But sometimes when I came by their house, she would tell me about something he had said or done to her or to their son. I brushed it off as routine marital conflict. You know, every story has two sides. Things couldn't possibly be that bad. After all, he had a good job. He took care of his family. She was a stay-at-home mom. He wasn't a monster, at least not to me. I would occasionally invite her to a Bible study or some other outing with some other ladies because she seemed isolated. Outside of activities with her son and her husband, I couldn't think of one time that I had heard her recount having any other friends. But without fail, although she would seem excited about the invitation, she would always have a reason to cancel at the last minute. It was frustrating. Why didn't she ever follow through? She complained about her husband, who had an easy smile and was almost always with her whenever I saw her out in public. He wasn't a monster, at least not to me. I would call her and leave messages, but sometimes weeks later when I got her on the phone, she would say she never received the message. She was constantly having trouble with her phone. Weird things like her password not working or messages not showing up. We lost touch as our boys ended up at different schools, but one day I was thinking of her and I decided to reach out. I learned that my friend was in a shelter for domestic violence survivors, and I felt ashamed. I had not taken her words seriously. I didn't really know what domestic abuse looked like. Not in a million years would I have understood her whispered confessions at the door while he ran to the basement to get my son from a play date with a desperate cry for help. She never had physical bruises, at least none that I could see. My son had never shared any horror stories about his time at their house. And oftentimes I had to make him come home because he loved being at their house so much. I couldn't fathom verbal or emotional abuse because he wasn't a monster, at least not to me. But when I learned of her situation, it was like watching the movie The Sixth Sense. The things that you thought you saw and understood was only because of your perspective. And once you had the truth staring you in the face, you were able to go back and see the same encounters with new eyes. That doting father and husband who was always present, I now understood was control. He very rarely let them out of his sight. The glitchy issues with her phone, his background was telecommunications security. It wasn't an accident. Her constant cancellation of plans, he kept her isolated. She's starting a new life now. It's been hard. He still tries to control her even though they're now divorced, but I'm proud of her. She has a long way to go to healing and recovery, but she made that first step, and she's putting her life back together for herself and her son. We don't expect monsters to smile or to be nice. We don't expect to enjoy their presence or see them at every school function, but it's possible. Monsters can put you at ease and get you to let down your guard, but don't be fooled. All monsters are scary, just in different ways. He was a monster. This is my last piece. This is a piece I wrote thinking about transitioning from processed hair, get my perm, to my natural hair, and it's called Resist. I pulled the metal tines of my afro comb through my kinky curly hair and smiled with satisfaction. The tight curls of my natural hair spring back into coils, resisting the pull of the comb to obey and submit. They resist, and so do I. Did you know that there were laws in Louisiana as far back as 1786 that regulated how women of color could wear their hair? According to an article in Essence magazine, the laws forbid women of color from adorning their textured hair with gems and beads and other accents. Women were made to cover their hair so that it would not offend. When I was a child, I sat in a creaking wooden chair by the stove. My mama greased my ears with Vaseline and told me to use my fingers to hold them down so that she could pull the straightening comb through my hair without burning my ears. The odor of burning hair filled the air as I watched the wisp of air catch fire and quickly extinguish each time my mama reheated the comb on the eye of our stove. She was making my hair submit, and when she was finished, my hair was straight. My hair was acceptable. I felt beautiful, and my hair would not offend. Nowadays, I look at myself in the mirror, and I feel confident and proud. I joined the ranks of those who came before me who recognized that expressing your true self can be offensive to some. It was a slow transition. Undoing generations of inferiority indoctrination, it takes a minute. I know who I am and where I come from, and I honor my ancestors as I teach my own children the way I style my hair. When I was a teenager, I could hardly wait to get that latest style, the Jerry curl. The process used lye to chemically straighten my hair, only to add more chemicals to make it curl and shine and bounce. The first time it burned my scalp so bad I had sores for days, but chemical burns did not deter me. But now my coils refuse to be hidden by a scarf or tamed by chemicals. I am learning to be proud of the texture God gave me. My hair is a small way of throwing off generations of shackles and celebrating my heritage, my culture, my people. My hair is my way of saying I will not suffer to be someone I am not, that I will embrace who I am and speak out for those who have not yet found their own truth. Now there is a law of different kind making its way from state to state to try to free us from the absurdity of having not only our bodies policed, but also our hair. It is called the Crown Act. It was created in 2019 to ensure protection against discrimination based on race-based hairstyles by extending statutory protection to hair textures and protective styles, such as braids, locks, twists, and knots in the workplace and in public schools. This act is necessary because some courts have ruled in favor of discrimination by suggesting that employees were expected to be dressed and groomed in a manner that projects a professional and business-like image. In essence, that federal court supported an employer who would not hire a candidate for the express reason of her hair. So who gets to determine what defines a professional and business-like image? I'm guessing it ain't the folks with dreadlocks, cornrows, or afros. I, too, wanted to project a professional and business-like image, and I bowed to standards of beauty that were not my own. My coils yearned to be free, but I would not submit. I resisted their call to be my natural self. I only wore my hair braided when I went on mission trips. Even I understood that it made no sense to drag curling irons and blow dryers with me when my hair in its natural state was so easy to maintain. But unlearning the belief that imprisoned my true self would take several more years. The first time I was brave enough to wear my braids to work, someone asked me if I had been on vacation. And it took me a minute to compute what had been said. And Bo Derek on the beach notwithstanding, hair braiding in Africa can be traced back to 3500 BC. It is a brave thing I do each day to wear my kinky curly do in all of its unwieldy glory, yet I resist the call to submit. I realize I'm not sitting at a lunch counter, marching in the streets, being set on by police dogs, or getting arrested, but it is a sign. My outward sign of a change that has taken place in my heart. This is where my activism flows. I pour that coconut oil in my hands and saturate my locks so they stay healthy. Because you can't fight the good fight if you don't have healthy roots. I have that. I had inherited from my ancestors. My coils still constrict, resisting my attempts to put them in their place. They will not conform, and neither will I. Yeah.
Tina Bryson. saying the quiet part out loud. I love it. I love it. How many of y'all know that black women look good with straight hair? How many of you know that black women look good with curly hair? What about black women with locks? What about black women with no hair at all? Thank you, Tina. Noni, are you ready, or do you need a couple minutes? All right. Let's welcome Anonimuss Rose.
Good afternoon. How are you all? Good. So, I am Anonimuss Rose. I am a neo-soul hip-hop artist, born and raised here in Lexington, Kentucky. I have not lived anywhere else. This is all I know. This edition is very special to me because this is called A Song for Mama. And one thing I do is I write for women, period. You know, I write for men and women. But today, we're going to also recognize May as Mental Health Awareness Month. And mamas having their mental straight is very important, okay? Mama's got to be the best her so that she can be the best for you, right? And generations before us, if we be honest, they didn't get that same leisure. They had to be tough. They had to be strong. They had to be masculine. They had to wear the pants. Sit down. Shut up. Get over here. Get over there. Sit down. Get out. Yeah. It's a lot that we had to do. So now we're in this era of time where we actually have the voice to, you know what? I've been holding this for 15 years and I want to you know, like, and it's safe. We're providing environments for each other. And I want my music to be able to provide that as well. So the first two singles that I'll be singing will be Coconut Sugar, and then we'll also transition over to Stand. All right? Now let them speak for themselves. You ready? Yeah. All right, let's do it. I'm gonna turn it up for me just a little bit. There we go. You're so unrefined, but get sweeter with time. My little coconut sugar. What's it to you? You've been out here working hard, moving your player card, not caring about their hearts. You said you'd never give it to another. Walk around denouncing all these brothers, but there's fear in your heart and it plays a big part to the things that you start. My little coconut sugar, what's it to ya? What's it to ya, little coconut sugar? Why does it hurt so bad? Why does it make you feel so sad, little coconut sugar? Gotta let go of that hurt, sis. There's a whole lot of life that you're about to miss. And you can't dismiss the divine, cause all will be revealed with time, little coconut sugar. What's it to ya? What's it to ya, little coconut sugar? Why does it hurt so bad? Why does it make you feel so sad? What's making you so mad? Why you're focusing on the things you never had? Open up your mind and understand that you can't always go. Girl, you gotta plan, so make it stand. Baby, you're gonna make it to the end. You're gonna make it to the end. Coconut sugar. Oh, what's it to ya? Coconut sugar. introduce it to ya. Yeah, yeah. Oh, you like that? Yeah. Sometimes you just gotta ask yourself, why even be upset about it? This one is next to anybody that's ever lost a family member due to police violence. There are a lot of mamas. I don't want to cry. There are a lot of mamas that will celebrate their first Mother's Day without their babies. Second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, however many. And it doesn't get easier over time. And I wanted to take a stance because sometimes we can let the gray area kind of get to us. But sometimes you got to stand on something. So here's Stand. Mind to turn it up for me just a little bit more?
I'm sitting in the park at West Boulevard by the West Boulevard train station. And there's a guy that was a pistol, it's always late. He's like pointing it at everybody. It's always late, scared. Yes, I'm a watch that.
How much more will my people have to take? Another body laying cold in the gutter, another heart to break. It really doesn't take long for your life to change. Why do these people have so much heart but hate? All they do is fight, and some won't even fester to fight against privilege and built-in pride. But sooner than later it's gonna get greater. Will you stand with us or fight against us? Only time will tell. And in this great war, man, I wish you well. Oh, against us. And in this great war, man, I wish you well. Oh, set for freedom, for justice, equality for all. Say it's on us now. Ooh, it's on us now.
I'm here too, but I don't, you know.
Okay, we'll send a copy. Thank you. We have a code one, XL. Everybody's tied up with priorities. Let's get guys sitting on the swing.
I can't run.
Here's what's morning call. Yeah, keep right here for code one, XL.
I can't walk.
Shots fired. Wheel down.
I can't play in the park.
On Black Revolver, but can't go last minute.
I can't walk after dark. I can't defend myself. I can't call you for help. Tell me, is this the end? Will you be Thank you.
I'm a mother of 5. My girls are amazing women. But y'all, Jesus owes me money for those boys. Jesus does not owe me money. But I am so blessed that I get money. to do things like this and to meet all of these amazing writers. And for Nita babies, if you want to write, I've got classes for you to take for free. Anybody black in this room, if you want to write, if you've got a story in you, even if you want to learn Italian or Spanish, I got you. The Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative exists in order to amplify, elevate, and celebrate black voices in Kentucky. It's free, and you can take advantage of it. We've got probably about 12 more scholarships left for our Books in Progress conference. So you can call and get a full scholarship, but act now. Anyway, we're going to have just a little break. Just get up, stretch, and then we'll be right back. Thank you. All right, y'all get some cookies? I'm trying to cut down. Our next reader, the fabulous Dr. Abeni El-Amin.
Wow, it's really difficult to go after three amazing performers. I will say that also I'm very happy to see my friends and my family, my principal from high school, my beloved counselor from high school, so Ms. George, and Ms. Bowman. And Ms. Bowman definitely has a really sweet spot in my heart. So for them to walk into the studios this evening, I'm just going to tell you guys that this performance is going to be good. So hang on to your hats. So a song for Mama. I've got a bit of a different story because I was raised by a single parent father. And so this is my journey that I am going to share with you. And I just thank you for listening at the very onset. I also want to thank our amazing sponsors. We couldn't do this kind of work without the sponsors. And again, thank you to my friends and family, and certainly to my WUKY family as well. So, what is jazz? Improvisation at its best. Instruments frolic more or less. The more you feel its passion, the better it gets. What is jazz? Jazz is life. It is a birth. It is a history, a life untold, and poetic justice we must unfold. That is actually an annotated piece, and all of my pieces come from a much bigger collective of the Infinity Spiritual Center, The Realm. And so for the purpose of this performance, I did annotate some of my work. So again, like I said, I have a very different experience with parenting from that of a mother. Although my mother was a vessel for life, mental illness robbed us of her warm, caring spirit and laughter. My father raised my siblings and me. He became both a mother and a father to me, and then he transitioned. So this next piece is called Broken Compass, a eulogy. But just like it's pretty typical with me to include you into my performances or anything that I do, Takbir is one of his favorite sayings, and Takbir is Arabic for raise the spirit or praise God. So if you don't mind, I'm going to say Takbir, and you're going to say, Takbir. All right, I'm going to say it again, Takbir. Takbir. I'm going to say it one more time, Takbir. Takbir, Takbir, Takbir. Thank you. So you just raised the spirit, so I really appreciate that. So broken compass. Daddy, when you pass, my compass broke. No one can understand the handkerchief soak. When I looked into your kaleidoscope eyes, I could see beginning, center, and end. Now I suffer alone in darkness, longing for your approving stare. The eulogy on April 1st, 2006. A tribute to our father, Brother Bilal Najir El-Amin. Takbir! 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 When I think of my father, I think of a human being who is kind, loving, funny, and overall a joy to be around. Many people I have spoken with over the last couple of months have remarked that he has been impactful and generally a wonderful addition to their lives. For instance, the Hall family no longer eats pork at family gatherings. Many now see Pepsi aluminum cans and cigarette UPCs as valuable resources to acquire logo-branded goods. Most of all, Daddy would proclaim loudly and proudly of the goodness and mercy of Allah. My father persevered through many challenges in life. In his mid-20s, he was challenged with the responsibility of raising 4 young children alone. As our father struggled with the plight of cancer, he complained very little about the discomfort of the disease. Whether it was the doctor's visits in the middle of his work week, the profuse sweating, swollen lymph nodes, or the general uncertainty of the disease. Though an extremely intelligent and wise man, he never graced the halls of college, but he insisted his children get as much quality education as possible. My father enjoyed being a parent. He was a true provider, mentor, and friend. Of course, we all had our bow to a baba, but now I see his sternness was to make us logical, steadfast in our belief for Allah, independent, and morally strong. My father was a great humanitarian. He enjoyed meeting Muslim brothers and sisters and just about anybody from around the world. He enjoyed speaking with man or woman, young or old. It is in this spirit of love that I conclude. My father deeply loved people. I call it uncontrollable love. Love so special that he would humble himself for the service to others. Love so strong for Allah, he would scream, Allah is the greatest, without concern or persecution. And you know what, Miss George, you're shaking your head because you knew my father and you knew he was exactly like that. Didn't care at all. Who heard? He loved the Lord. He recently said to me, one should not play at love. I understood this to mean that in the process of playing at love, that one is deceiving another into believing that one's relationship is something it is not. Overall, as family, friends, brothers and sisters in humanity, we must love uncontrollably. And this is what my father taught us, because the true extent of your essence is measured by the exhibition of love that one shows as an embodiment for creation. Takbir! 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 Yes, sir! Happy birthday, Reverend Wilson. So, from the loss of my precious Baba, I relied on other poets to find poetic justice. William Ernest Henley comes to mind. And if you know the poem Invictus, you're more than welcome to recite it as well.
Out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeoning of chance, my head is bloody, but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds or shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishment the scroll. I am the master of my fate. God is the captain of my soul.
Yes, sir. That's my loving husband. I could not do everything that I do without him. And, of course, our creator. So, life has not always been a crystal stair, though I make it seem easy and I accomplish a lot and have so, but I've had my challenges. And so regarding the relationship with my mother, I realized that before I could move forward in life, I had to be empathetic, sympathetic, less resentful, and forgive Ella. See, I was born to very young parents, yet my father covered my siblings with me and me with words like beautiful, gifted, intelligent, worthy, precious, Say it loud. Say it loud. Say it loud. Yes, sir. But this is what I'm really here for, is the birth healing. So before I could move on with my life, this was about 2009, 2010 timeframe, I was really going through a lot of mental illness myself and depression, and was really at a stalling place in my life. And so I just sat down and I reflected, and this is what came out of that. Birth healing. I remember the atmosphere was warm. Nutrients were plentiful. When it was time to exit the womb, there was external pressure to come. The day arrived, but I sent my parents home to wait longer for my arrival. A couple of weeks later, a doctor called the order to initiate. I distinctly remember being very upset within those 2 weeks. I was very fearful because I did not trust humans and was afraid they would hurt me. During this time, I had discussions with God and begged not to be birthed. In the womb, I contemplated many times about prenatal expiration. I physically cried inside the womb at the thought of arriving on earth. I remember whining to God, "No!" Inside the delivery room, the scene was chaotic. I could hear frantic noise outside my mother's body. It had to be they chemically induced or physically forced the labor. I don't know which, and maybe both. I crawled away from the cervix towards my mother's rib cage. There was a force that pushed me. When I could no longer deny my entrance onto earth, I let go. For 2 weeks, I felt extremely resentful. 3.5 weeks later, I was rushed back to ER. My nerves were knotted as a result of anxiousness. To my dismay, they revitalized me, and I was sent on my way. I was nursed for a while, forced by my father, who insisted children were healthier with mother's milk. This discontinued on the sly without my father's watchful eye. I was somehow happy not to be nursed, as it made me feel uncomfortable in the first place. The reasons were manyfold. I was distrustful of my mother for not being prepared to receive me. I was there. I experienced the reality and the emotions, for she was young, scared, and resented me coming into being. That's my birth healing. So after that very last period, I was able to breathe again. Although I realize that I am not completely healed from these experiences, but with loving friends, family, and community, I rise, I rise, I rise. So please join me in a spiritual awakening and healing with an embodiment from Mama Sisiko from Mali, Safitu, which means precious. Please rise to your feet and let the Spirit move you in my birth healing and in your birth healing. Come on, rock with me, rock with me, rock with me. Yes, 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 yes. And if you yourself are dealing with the need for healing, let it go right here. Come on. That's it. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Come on, let it go. If you've got something, if you're dealing with emotional illness, if you are repressed, if your creativity is repressed, let it go right here. Come on. You are precious, and so am I. And thank Thank you. Thank you very much. Woo.
Y'all do not stop amazing me. Woo, dance party. Healing dance party. I want you to know that last piece is why I asked Dr. Abeni to join us tonight, because we don't all have positive experiences with our mothers. Some of us have very difficult, challenging experiences. And Abeni, I want to honor you for talking so freely about the struggle of mental illness. Yes, sir. I wrote a memoir in 2018 called Don't You Fall Now. And it is the story of my son having a psychotic break when he had just turned 18, and he jumped off the top of the parking structure at Short and Broadway. And what it took, by the grace of God, he survived, but what it took to mother him through this process of healing that really is still going on today. And I too have the same mental illness, he just has a more severe form. As I was looking for research books, I could not find 10 memoirs written by people of color about their struggle with mental illness. I could not find 10. On Amazon.com, you know how many books are on Amazon. I'm talking traditionally published and self-published, because we don't write about our struggles with mental illness. And we need to. Because one thing I know from my own life, I had aunts that were paranoid schizophrenics, bipolar disorder runs in my family, substance abuse runs in my family, and what I know from also working on a behavioral health unit at Good Samaritan Hospital is that mental illness is equal opportunity. It does not care what color your skin is or what your gender is. Everybody goes through it, especially here in America. Maybe not in other places, but here we do, and we don't talk about it in the Black community. It's a stigma all over the country, but in the Black community, we don't want to acknowledge. So thank you, Abeni, thank you, Noni. Even in your bio, you talk about your struggles. And we need that, because I guarantee you, somebody else is out there saying, me too, even if they're not saying it out loud. So once again, I encourage you. You got a story in you. Let me help you get it out. That's what we're here for. And now, we're going to turn up the lights and welcome my friend, my fellow parishioner. Even though I don't go to church, y'all pray for me. Nita Clarke.
Good afternoon. Good evening. I'd like to start off first by wishing all of the mothers here a very happy Mother's Day coming up Sunday, especially to my wonderful daughter, Michelle, my wonderful daughter-in-law, Stephanie, and to my sister friend over there, Jackie Phillips. Have a wonderful Mother's Day. This is an excerpt from my book, Mint Julep, The Reunion. The genre is historical, humor, and romance. We're going to start during the slave days. This is before some of the things that happen in the book that are a lot more happy than what I'm about to read to you. This is about Moselle, a young African woman, African and Spanish, and her mistress, Madame Frou Frou. So let's begin. Moselle, A very beautiful young woman with smooth skin, the coloring of copper, and eyes as black as a southern night, had been conceived one evening when a Spanish dignitary who had been traveling throughout the South sought shelter from a thunderstorm at the home of Master Roderick Castile. After a fulfilling meal, a glass of imported wine, and a gentlemanly smoke, Master Castile offered Moselle's mother as a belly warmer to the Spaniard, and the rest, as they say, is a part of Southern history. Years later, Master Lapierre, who became quite smitten with their offspring, had offered a large sum of money to Master Castile as a purchase price to have Moselle, then at the tender age of 17, brought to his plantation to work as a seamstress for both his lovely wife and the other women who lived on the plantation. Appearances were very important to Master Lapierre, so Moselle became a prized possession to him and also to the needs of the mistress. Who else would seem most likely to accompany Madame Frou Frou on such a journey than one who could keep her well dressed while she continued to swell with the progression of her exotic and unknown swelling disease? Madame Frou Frou agreed, and Moselle was charged with accompanying the mistress on her journey. No one was actually surprised to see the mistress of the Lapierre plantation sashay into the slave quarters, announcing that she was looking for Moselle. After all, the plantation as well as the slaves themselves belonged to her and the Master Lapierre. The irony, of course, was that it was daylight and she was looking for a slave woman, not Jean-Pierre's father. Everyone stood still as they were frozen in time, with their eyes cast down, as Madame Frou Frou whipped through the area with her skirt swishing in the breeze that she created. A grown-up Moselle confidently appeared before the mistress, and while looking her straight in the eyes, announced that she was the woman for whom the mistress was looking. As if inspecting the slave girl for some sort of contagious disease, Madame Frou Frou walked around her several times and finally said to her, "You'll do." Both ladies were indeed well dressed as they boarded the huge ship in New Orleans, headed for Europe, a journey that would take just a little over 1 month to complete. Madame Frou Frou managed to squeeze out a few tears as she bade farewell to her adoring husband. It was apparent that Moselle was overwhelmed with the sight of the big ship and found it very difficult not to terribly be afraid, but quickly jumped to the mistress's attention when she screamed for Moselle's help with the baggage. During that first night at sea, as Moselle busied herself unpacking the bags and putting away the mistress's things, a well-kept secret was revealed. Madame Frou Frou confided to Moselle that she was truly pregnant. And an unfortunate pregnancy it could be, since the child she was carrying either could or could not be that of her husband's. But in the very next breath, Madame Frou Frou pointed her finger in Moselle's face and reminded her that she was bound to secrecy for fear of her life, and that she should not forget her place as a slave, or she would surely regret it. Moselle struggled to release Madame Frou Frou from her corset, which had helped hide the truth, agreeing never to tell the secret. And yet at the very moment that the corset snapped open and unleashed the mistress's enormous belly, Moselle revealed a secret of her own. She, too, was pregnant. A wise woman always grasps her opportunities as they present themselves. So it would not be long before Madame Frou Frou seized the situation at hand to create the ideal resolution to the present set of circumstances. The answer was obvious. If the child that Madame Frou Frou was carrying was indeed a child of a different color than her own husband, The story for all to know would be that Moselle had given birth to both babies. Yes, twins. And since they would both be fathered by slaves, who would possibly know the difference? Yes, who would? It would be a truly phenomenal story to be spread throughout the slave quarters, and most assuredly, one that Master LaPierre could not question. The motion of the great ship whipping against the waves of the sea brought much discomfort to both Madame Frou Frou and her gal slave Moselle, as each hung her head over the side of the ship to deposit their morning sickness into the waters. It was convenient enough to complain of seasickness to the various passers-by, including the captain, who offered his assistance to the lady and her gal slave. Madame Frou Frou would graciously thank them for their concern and explain that they were on their very first cruise, and surely she would eventually become less susceptible to the common traveler's ailment. Moselle, of course, would keep her eyes cast down in the proper slave manner while following the mistress closely around the mighty ship, serving her needs and simply being there for her beck and call while suffering the same fate as her mistress. By the time the mighty ship finally docked at the seaside Italian village where the mistress and Moselle would reside until they were relieved of their delicate conditions, both ladies were indeed quite ready to put their feet on solid ground. Unfortunately, their profound weight gain and sea legs made walking while maintaining a ladylike appearance quite a difficult task. Arrangements had been made in advance by Master LaPierre for the two ladies to stay in a lovely furnished cottage that was located just outside the tiny city and owned by a local merchant that he had made friends with while on a shopping trip abroad. The two ladies moved in as quickly as they could and began preparing for their upcoming events, a circumstance that truly upholds the belief that strange bedfellows are begotten by common need. Moselle used her expert ability to create adorable outfits by hand for the mistress, using lovely European fabric that merchants were all too happy to bring to the cottage for their approval. Fashions, of course, that in no way resembled maternity clothing. Madame Frou Frou demanded that Moselle look her best in public as well, and encouraged her to use whatever leftover fabric to create fashions for herself. And Moselle did just that, creating adorable fashions in a patchwork design for herself that were comfortable, fashionable, but easily distinguished the mistress from the maid. Before much longer, it was obvious that the delicate Madame Frou Frou was losing control over her own situation, unable to do much of anything without the help of her capable companion Moselle. She was all too happy to relinquish her power over to Moselle in exchange for the mutual sharing of their delicate conditions, since between the two, only Moselle was truly capable of caring for either one. It was hard to believe, but by the time that the first of the two ladies were just about ready to give birth, Madame Frou Frou and her gal slave Moselle had actually bonded together as friends, a companionship about which the mistress continually warned Moselle would be absolutely inappropriate and would most certainly have to end once the two had returned home to the LaPierre plantation. The mistress kept the secret of her true condition from her new neighbors by openly discussing her unusual illness, citing that her loving husband, the Master LaPierre, had been so generous and concerned as to send her on this journey in an attempt to aid in her healing. The mistress would smile between her rosy cheeks, causing them to puff out even more, stretching her nose from cheek to cheek and causing her face to just sort of jump out at anyone standing in front of her. Both ladies spent lots of time in the cottage just crying their eyes out for no particular reason. And then almost as quickly as they had begun to cry, they would begin to laugh uncontrollably. In between their crying and laughing, the two would fight over who would use the outhouse first, sometimes actually one pushing the other one out of the way in order to get there just in time. And of course, there were those lengthy conversations about men, in particularly about the men who had impregnated each one, although their true names were never uttered, as both Madame Frou Frou and Moselle, still being the tiniest bit cautious of each other, referred to them by other names that would most assuredly be inappropriate for a true lady to repeat. It would be difficult for anyone within hearing distance to prove that the screams coming from the cottage were not those of the mistress when the first of the two babies were born. Moselle stuffed a towel in the mistress's mouth to muffle the sound, after asking permission, of course, while pointing out that the secret would no longer be a secret if Moselle was still big with child after the neighbors had heard the unmistakable sounds of labor. The mistress agreed, biting down on the towel as Moselle genuinely cared for her, wiping her sweating face and giving her small sips of cool water while her own child twisted and turned within her as if communicating with the child struggling to come into the world. Once or twice, the mistress slapped Moselle across the face as she made an attempt to examine her progress, an action that eventually prompted Moselle to inform the mistress that she, in her current condition, was in no position to play that tired old master-slave game unless she could deliver her own child. Needless to say, Madame Frou Frou understood quite well the message, and although reluctantly, she surrendered herself to trusting that Moselle would not take advantage of the current situation, which required the mistress to reply and rely completely on her gal slave in truly reversed roles. Madame Frou Frou moaned and groaned for hours in the agony of childbirth, while being extremely careful not to take out her fear and anxiety on the only other human being she had to assist her, a slave girl who was just as pregnant as she was. When the right time was there, Moselle instructed Madame Frou Frou to push, but she began to cry like a child instead, and uttered in a very low voice that she was just too scared to push. Moselle simply responded with her strong Creole accent as she moved away with her arms folded. Well, fine. Let it stay in there till it's able to walk, to talk, and to stand eye to eye with you. Either push now and give that birth to that little baby, or keep acting silly and give birth to a full-grown man. It was only then that Madame Frou Frou pushed as hard as she could to bring life into the world. When Moselle announced with greatest excitement that she could see the baby's head, Madame Frou Frou was more interested in what color the child was rather than whether it was a girl or a boy. Only when the sweet baby's shoulders emerged could Moselle announce that the precious little child would most certainly and definitely have a home with her in the slave quarters. Madame Frou Frou began to cry and refused to even look toward the child as Moselle sterilized the knife and cut the navel cord. She quickly moved the child to her own bed and began to clean the baby and proudly announced that it was a little boy. Once the little one had been properly taken care of and was resting quite peacefully, Moselle began to tend to the sobbing Madame Frou Frou, cleaning her and the bedclothes while humming a soft lullaby to help her fall asleep. From that moment on, Moselle never spoke of the fact that this firstborn male child actually belonged to Madame Frou Frou. She simply claimed him as her own from the very beginning, and loved him as though it had been in her womb for which he had come. Both children were born within 1 week of each other, a boy to Madame Frou Frou and a girl to Moselle. Moselle, however, cared for the baby boy as if he truly was hers, nursing him and singing him to sleep while holding him as close as could be. When it was time for Moselle to go into labor with her own child, the sweet baby boy was of first concern to her, especially when Madame Frou Frou panicked at the idea that she would have to care for that sweet thing while Moselle labored to bring her own into the world. As if the sweet child knew exactly what was going on, even in the midst of labor all around him, he slept throughout the entire ordeal. Even while Madame Frou Frou screamed in sheer horror when she was told by Moselle that she had to help with the delivery, the sweet baby boy slept peacefully. It was only when Moselle's darling baby girl caught her first breath of life and released a cry to the world did the sweet baby boy open his eyes to join in the chorus of tiny voices, going completely unnoticed by Madame Frou Frou, who had nearly fainted when she had to cut the navel cord. Since it was common practice for the slaves to name their children after the master of the plantation, the boy was named Jean-Pierre Lapierre, and the girl was named Dolice Marie Lapierre, using the only legal name available, which depicted that these children were the property of the Lapierre plantation and not of Moselle's former owner, Roderick Castile, or any other master for that matter of fact. The plan in place called for Madame Frou Frou and Moselle to stay in the small Italian village with the children until all signs of the mistress's pregnancy and birth were indeed impossible to trace. Moselle buried herself in loving care of the babies, whispering and singing in their tiny ears as she nursed them, seemingly separated from the entire world, while Madame Frou Frou concentrated her efforts on reconstructing her figure. Sometimes in the quiet of the evenings, when Madame Frou Frou had gone for a long walk, Moselle would watch lovingly as Jean-Pierre and Dolice Marie slept peacefully while either holding on to each other or while one sweet child's head lay comfortably upon the other's chest. No matter how far apart the two began in their sleep, eventually they would squirm and roll in an attempt to find each other, finally resting calmly in the spell of Moselle's soothing lullaby. It became quite obvious that the younger Dolice Marie had a mind of her own, surpassing Jean-Pierre in learning to walk, talk, and the process involved in the use of a chamber pot, while the elder was quite clear the protector, being the first to offer support when the younger endeavored a new venture. No matter what the role each assumed, it was apparent that the two had truly bonded as brother and sister, and it was certainly apparent that both dearly loved the only parent they knew, their beloved Mama Moselle.
Lovely. I have a friend, an old Orthodox priest, black man, keeper of stories. And he told me, if we don't preserve our stories, in one generation, they will disappear. We have to keep our stories. We have to not only remember the time when we were called 3/5 of a human. Although Nita's work is fiction, those kind of stories, and even more brutal, happened again and again and again. Her novel is 400 years in the making. And we have to keep our stories. We've got a youth in the house. We've got an elder in the house. It doesn't matter how old you are. Your story matters. Your voice matters. The stories from the past and the stories that'll take us into the future. The stories that are there are stories that are fiction, but they are still true. Yes? Might not be a fact, but it's true. And then we've got our fanciful stories and everything in between. We've got our music. We have to keep our stories alive. So once again, I encourage you, if you have a story, let us help you get it out because it matters. We're not going to lose our stories in one generation on my watch. And I want you all to join me in amplifying, elevating, and celebrating Black voices. And now, once again, the rose blooming in the hood. I love this kid like my own child. And one, I requested, she knew, she's going to sing Ruby tonight, about Ruby Bridges. That's my favorite of her work. And I did name my hot red Thunderbird outside Ruby. For Ruby Bridges, a 6-year-old girl who could walk through a crowd, 6 years old, a crowd of white people cursing and spitting and reviling. And she did it. Little head held high with dignity. And I named my car Ruby because we can do hard things. Yes? Yeah. Anonimuss Rose.
Thank you so much. Give yourselves a round of applause. Man, ma'am, let me tell you something. You took me there. Like, I really love, like, I don't want to say I take away from reading because I like reading books, but it's so much easier to picture it. And like baby, you took me there. I thought I was on the ship and the piece of the wood, like, yes, ooh. I really appreciated that. And to follow up with that, this is Ruby, and this is just to kind of talk about how, sometimes you're not accepted in the world, but that's okay. We're going to shine anyway. We're going to shine anyway. So here's Ruby. Black girl, you don't belong here, they said. This is a man's world, yeah. That's all that I hear. I gave my Barbie doll a pretty fancy car and a new career. How you doing, Ken? Mama said that I could be anything, and true or not, I believed her. Yes, ma'am, I said. She kissed me on my head and told me I was a seer. I was made for more, to doing things for boys. What kind of basic girl do you take me for? I'm a ruby. Yeah, I'm a ruby. Said I can walk alone if you're scared to go. I can hold my own, I don't fear no more. I just gotta be strong and hold on. Said I can walk alone if you're scared to go. I can hold my own, I don't fear no more. I just gotta be strong and hold on. And I'm gonna shine like a ruby. It's my time, baby, it's my turn. And yes, I'm gonna shine like a ruby. Free my mind every day and night. I'ma walk with pride like a ruby. Head up high. I'm gonna shine, I'm gonna shine. All right, you ready? I represent cause it matters to little girls who will have to climb the corporate ladder. In the world where feminine blackness is unattractive, cloning manufactured, they call it a movement but don't see it's going backwards. A bunch of prima donnas, but I be Black Madonna. With Christ in my name, I'm not the same old Ariana. My disclaimer, let me know if that's gonna be a problem, cause I will never stay where I'm a secondary option. So see, I know my value, so I don't need appraisal. We all in the majors till we unplugging the cables, breaking all the barriers and challenging the labels. This is when evolution meets elevation. Let's put it on the table. The same head they said not to bite is the one that rocks the cradle. Lord save them. We shouldn't have to fight to be treated as we were created. I'm just saying, and I'm gonna shine. Yeah. Oh, said I'm gonna shine. I'ma walk with pride like I'm Ruby, yeah. And yes, I'm gonna shine like I'm Ruby. I'm Ruby. Y'all like that? Thank you so much. I got one more selection for y'all, and this is gonna be a little bit more upbeat, so we can clap our hands, sway to the side. This is one of my favorites, and this is called 621, okay? This is about you having a great day. Everything's kind of going your way. God's on your side, money's in your pocket, you looking good, you smelling good, ain't it right? All right, so let's go on and get on into it. This is 621. Let's do it. And you can actually turn me up a little bit. Woke up feeling good today. Paint my toes and did my hair. Think the sun just slipped my way. Changed my clothes and called my girls. Cause today we're not worried about all the things that could bring me down. I'm gonna sing, I'ma scream and shout. All that trauma, gonna let it out. Because I cried and I cried and I died inside. But now I'm high and I'm fine and my mind is mine. So go ahead, smile, it's good for your health. 621, I don't need no help, I'm feeling myself. Body on smash, spirit on God, and my mind on cash. So go ahead, smile, it's good for your health. 621, I don't need no help, feeling myself. Body on smash, spirit on God, and my mind on cash. And I am more than you've ever given me credit for. Yes, I'm applauding myself, I have no need for yours. I'm a star and I'm beautiful walking out the door. You got the world in your hands, girl, what you waiting for? Cause today we're not worried about all the things that could bring us down. We gon' sing, we gon' scream and shout. All that drama, gonna let it out. Because you've cried and you've died inside. But now you're high and fine, and now's the time. I don't need no help. Spirit on God and my mind on cash. I don't need no help. Come on, keep it going. Hey, come on. Clap for yourselves, yeah. Yeah. I don't think y'all hear me out. I got me till the end, cause I'm my own best friend. Said I don't need your help, I got myself. My spirit on God and my mind on cash, yeah. I don't need your help. I am Anonimuss Rose. You guys can find me on all platforms. I'm available on all social media platforms. And Lincoln Lounge Part 2, The Juliet, drops May 19th. Those are songs that feature off of that project. So make sure you guys check it out. Be open-minded, keep your heart open, and enjoy the ride. Let's do it. Happy Mother's Day, everybody. Ooh, y'all. So I don't know if you guys know, but the urban community, when it comes to music, okay, I like to say this. I'm black. I don't know what else to be. I don't know what else to be but me. And sometimes when you, let's be transparent about it, when you live in a place where the majority is not you, and it's kind of hard to kind of unify what percentage we do have. The work kind of gets overlooked. I've been doing music for 10 years, y'all. I'm 29 years old. I've been doing music and recording since I was 19 years old. And two brothers that I know and went to school with, you know, I can say I went to school with them, Lord mercy, Jesus. Oh goodness. Ron Downing and Roderick Dunson, they came together and they created the Blueprint Kentucky Awards. Now, what the Blueprint Awards does is that it shined a light on artists that have been working hard, you've been grinding hard, and they wanted to show appreciation, but you still had to vote, you still had to push yourself, and you still had to grind. Now, y'all didn't think I was gonna win. I was nominated for Female R&B Artist Award, and I got dressed and I got pretty and all my blackness, and I went to the Opera House on West Shore Street and put my black toes on that Goodell white carpet and had me a good time. And if I be honest, let's just be transparent about it. It was a very monumental moment for me because besides an elementary field trip, I had never been to the Opera House. Yeah, this is where we're at. And I was sitting there eating M&Ms. And they was like, and the winner of the Female R&B Artist Award is, and I stuffed a bunch of M&Ms in my mouth. And it was Anonimuss Rose. I was like, oh, So I won Female R&B Artist of the Year, and that is such a great accolade to hold. Thank you guys so much. Keep writing. I started off just being a straight poet and writing books. And I transcribed or converted my words into melodies. So I still tell the same story. I use my voice to do it. So make sure that you guys check me out. Anonimuss Rose, Anonimuss. It's spelled like a black girl name. Just keep me apart from everybody else. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you. Thank you.
How blessed we are to have been here together tonight amid all of this magnificent talent. Thank you all. Thank you all for coming. Happy Mother's Day. If you know a mother who will be mourning on Mother's Day, give her a call or shoot her a text, give her a hug. I love y'all. We will see you September 7th at the Carnegie Center for Literacy and Learning when we honor the brothers. We're going to have our own KBWC associate, Jude McPherson, also known as JC, Frank X. Walker, Sean Pryor, and newcomer Dwayne Parker. So I hope to see you all at the Carnegie Center, 6 o'clock on September 7th. Y'all have a great weekend, and go have cookies.
This has been Say It Loud, a song for Mama, a joint production of the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative and 91.3 WUKY, University of Kentucky Public Radio. This event was recorded on May 11th of 2023 at the WUKY Studios in Lexington, Kentucky. This episode featured readings from Tina Bryson, Ellis Bryson, Nita Clarke, and Dr. Abeni El-Amin, with a musical performance from Anonimuss Rose. This broadcast was recorded by John Lamaghi and Tong Bedell and produced by DeBron Thomas. Special thanks to the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative coordinators Claudia Lovemeyer and J.C. McPherson, and to the staff of the Carnegie Center for Literacy and Learning. This event and its broadcasts were made possible by the Kentucky Arts Council, Lex Arts, South Arts, the Lexington Fayette Urban County Government, Southland Printing, the University of Kentucky, and the Chethik Family Fund to advance Black writers. More information about the Kentucky Black Writers Collaborative can be found at carnegiecenterlex.org, and more episodes of Say It Loud can be found at WUKY.org.